Serious people who've written malicious code, viruses, Trojans, etc. What motivated you to do so? If you stopped, what motivated you to stop? I inserted the code that opened every disk drive in the entire school once a week simultaneously by copying it, and when a teacher left, her administrator account logged in. With around 100 computers in our small school of 400 students, it was a ungodly funny experience hearing every CD drive open at once and everyone looking at each other. For 3 months there was an intense witch hunt for the code and the perpetrator with rewards and threats, but they never found it. Eventually they upgraded the entire school's mainframe and my beautiful creation was gone forever. It was 1998, and it was a total accident for my Excel macro to escape my desktop and begin infecting Excel workbooks all over the company. I had created a macro to automatically make a backup copy of the active workbook upon saving. The backup copy appeared in my home folder on a network drive. But one day I helped someone in ours with an Excel problem. They sat at my desk. I opened their doc, made a change, and saved it. My autosave macro replicated to their workbook. Now everyone in ours accessed that workbook over the next couple days, and every time they saved it, a copy would show up in my H/drive. The macro escaped their department, and the next, and the next. Pretty soon I got a visit from it admin. My H/drive was full. I checked and there were hundreds of workbooks, not mine, but clearly named with my backup file naming convention. I knew instantly what the problem was and had to fess up. My productivity tool cost me an entire weekend of cleanup. My hacking was limited to changing the text of a copy of the Oregon Trail computer game to harass some of my classmates. Things like, Beth died of having a big butt. Me and my friends thought it was hilarious, but then we got caught and banned from the computer lab for a while, which was enough motivation to not do it again. I did it once, but it wasn't harmful and was intended just for fun. I was in high school. I wrote an April Fool's virus. So it gets triggered by plugging in a USB stick. It copies itself into the computer and starts a timer. I did it on the classroom computer when no one was looking. Easy peasy. Then in the middle of the class, it fires a fake error message during some slides are open. The message tells that there is something wrong with the system. When teacher clicks OK or dismisses it, the computer restarts itself. Windows starts again, and another message gets fired. April Fools. Did you like our joke? When click no, it triggers a second reset. Motivation. We had a good laugh about it. Working with a bunch of programmers, we had a boss that liked to prank us. But he was pretty old school, so his ideas of pranks were putting tape over your mouse sensor, unplugging Ethernet cables, etc. One day, my fellow programmers and I were discussing the movie Super Troopers and the boss overheard us and commented that he thought the movie was dumb, so I clearly had to do something. I wrote a small background app that would alter any text he copy and pasted and change any instance of the word now to meow. I installed it when he left his PC unlocked. We did notice a few technical documents and emails with meow in it over the next few months. Eventually he noticed and called me in to fix the weird problem with his PC. I gave him some line about clearing the clipboard cache and killed the process without him realizing what was really happening. I wanted to find love. I discovered an exploit on a dating site I used that allowed me to perform actions on behalf of users simply by loading an image. Originally, I used the exploit to show a video message when they visited my profile. But when that didn't convert into offline dates, I tried a more aggressive tactic. This dating site gave preferential attention to attractive profiles, measured by how many views or likes they received. So I wrote an exploit that would like my profile, then add the exploit to your own profile. I became the most popular profile in an hour, but a mistake in my exploit added the exploit recursively, resulting in exponential requests from users to like my profile. After a couple hours, loading any profile resulted in thousands of requests, multiplied by millions of users, and my exploit ended up crashing the dating site. Oops. The admin calmly contacted me for help reversing and patching the exploit in exchange for not suing me. I did this once back in high school. Motivation, petty revenge and bullying. Stopped when it backfired. There was an annoying kid in my computer science classes, the type who thought he knew it all but was pretty clueless. One day he was complaining that a game he had downloaded required more memory than his home computer had. I told him I'd give him a copy of a utility that would do on-the-fly memory compression in DOS. At the time, a utility called Stacker for disk compression was popular, so memory compression was plausible. Of course, my utility was a Trojan. But I was subtle about it. It was a wrapper that planted the real Trojan payload in the startup file, autoexec. But the real Trojan checked the system date and only detonated if it was a month later than I originally did this. So he wouldn't be tracing the time bomb back to me. The payload was to trash the partition table, rendering all the drives inaccessible and unbootable. I don't know if he actually ran it or if the payload ever went off. The bomb date was in the summer after school ended. But the fun part is the postscript. Years later, my brother was playing with and learning programming, so I gave him a copy of my folder with all my old programs to play with. A few days later he tells me that his computer won't boot. Yikes. I put together a startup floppy disk with an auto repair utility to start digging, and eventually notice that the partition table had some corruption that looked oddly familiar. You guessed it, my own brother had run my old nasty Trojan and got his partition table nuked. Not entirely malicious, more so dickish admining. In my teens I used to work at a computer camp for kids. Being kids and that we couldn't see their screens, they'd naturally screw around on the computers as they weren't locked down at all. I wrote a simple app that gave me a remote shell, could do screen caps, take over input, etc. Installed it surreptitiously so they didn't know I had access. I didn't do anything particularly damaging to any of them. The best was when they'd go to dick around playing games, I had some fun crashing them or pausing input at a particularly critical moment. I was never a hacker, but I was always ahead of everyone else when it came to computers, so I'd play really simple pranks. One was I'd write a simple script so that when someone in the computer building tried to log off, this message would appear. Are you sure you want to format C? All data will be deleted. Y/N. Then when they typed N and hit enter, it would change to Y and just say formatting. My everlast trick however was this school bully, more an evil cool kid than a physical bully. I could probably have kicked his ass, who used to steal stuff from everyone, but we couldn't prove it. So I brought 3 floppies to school in my bag and then bragged about how this new TIE fighter game was so awesome. Then I left my bag unattended during gym. Yup, very stolen when I got back. Bag was still there, floppies and some gum gone. What he didn't realize until later was that I had taken the second disc apart, painted the actual disc with nail polish, and then sprinkled it with the very carefully crushed heads of Strike Anywhere matches. During installation, he was prompted to insert the second disc, which then spun up, and whoosh. He managed to completely destroy his dad's floppy drive when he inserted that bad boy, and I would have given anything to have seen his face when the flames shot out of the drive. Best part was he couldn't do shit without admitting to the theft. I created a dummy Hotmail login page way back in junior high. I just put it on the school computer desktops as a shortcut saying Hotmail. It would write the entered info to a text document. Some people actually used it. I quit because let's be real, that's not very high-end hacking, and was pretty much the best I could do. Nowadays it seems like there are way too many security features in place to prevent that kind of thing, so I don't know if I could be a hacker anymore. But it was a fun challenge as a kid in the early days of the internet. Made me feel Uber 1337. Wanted to dink with my friends. This was around high school. Their antivirus would catch the backdoor programs I'd send them, so I made my own. This is before most of the antivirus software worked on heuristics and could stop unknown threats. I knew their antivirus would catch it because they had the same one I did, and when I'd go to download them they'd label them. So what I did was I first sent out my Trojan and get them to install it. Then a week later I sent them the Trojans the antivirus could find. At this point they'd then know I was trying to do something, as their antivirus would tell them not to open it and would no longer open attachments from me. They then became more cautious and wouldn't open files from me, but it was too late. I played it like I was getting annoyed that nothing I was doing was working. I waited a while and said I found a site with lots of amazing hacking techniques, so then I would routinely act like I was hacking them in real time when I was just connecting to the Trojan I made and got them to install before. This wasn't something that ever propagated and was pretty harmless, mostly something to open and close their CD trays and demonstrate that I could. That was a lot of typing and a lot less interesting than I was thinking. Mostly to learn. One of the things I find tough with programming is finding something to do. If you have a job then it's easy. You have bugs to fix, features to add. Someone else tells you what to do and that's great. But if it's just you sitting there, what do? Make a website? Nah, I don't feel like it. Make an awesome looking customizable themed desktop app? Awesome. But what's it gonna do? I dunno. Malicious programs are basically the only thing that's interesting enough for me to look into in my free time. It's also the reason I started programming beyond classes and lessons in the first place. To mess with my classmates mostly. I haven't made anything too malicious, though I did make a cheat for MW3 at one point. Even though it was posted on public cheating forums, it still took over a year for it to be VAC detected. From that I also learned about obfuscating your code and compiling outside of Visual Studio. It had a tagging system where you'd shove tags into the code, then run a separate program that would look for those tags and fill the space in between with random junk code before compiling to try hide the program from vacation. With each recompile with the program it would essentially be a fresh eggs with a different signature and file size. I was pretty happy about that project just because of what I managed to accomplish and what I learned on the way. I rickrolled my friend for years. My friend was moving away, and as a prank, I wrote up a script that would wait 10 to 20 minutes, then play Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. Right before my friend packed up his computer I installed it as a subtly named Windows startup service. Then he moved and never mentioned it, and I forgot about it after a couple weeks. Several years later he had moved back, and a few friends and I were hanging out at his place. He boots up his PC to show us something on YouTube, then says oh, hang on, and opens Task Manager and kills some task. With a somewhat straight face I ask, what was that you just did? He explains that he got a virus that sometimes plays the Rick Astley song and he can't get rid of it. At some point he figured out that manually ending a certain process would stop it. I just about died laughing. I can only imagine how many times he must have heard that song. My friends, though, it was funny too, but they thought it was a little messed up that I put a virus on his computer. A local radio station was having a women's hot bod contest. The contestants had their picture taken with only the radio station's bumper sticker covering their bits. One contestant only had one photograph on there despite the others having multiple photos. I didn't think this was a very fair contest, so I decided to take action. Since the voting was online, I looked at their voting page code, wrote a script to post votes automatically, and submitted hundreds of thousands of votes for the underdog girl with one picture. Needless to say, this skewed the results of the contest so significantly. 99% and nil on the other girls. They had to shut down and restart the contest, this time with more security, email verification required. I actually called into the radio station and told them what I had done too. They begged me to even it out, but that wasn't possible.